Are you comfortable? Because I'm not. Don't worry. I know how it feels to be uncomfortable. I've been practicing quite a lot recently. So from where does this discomfort arise? Resistance to the moment. Resistance to what is. How many of us look for a distraction in that short silence? Yeah, when we're uncomfortable, we tend to look for a distraction from being in the moment or from being with ourselves. We look outside for answers instead of allowing inward time or meditation, which can be uncomfortable, but it's also incredibly healing. Resistance is why we suffer so much. When I stop to think about it, I realize that I can resist almost anything, from the time to what's for lunch, what my son wants to wear, to the weather. I mean, for God's sakes, can I stop resisting the weather? But it's this resistance that I believe has kept us from revolution. The revolution that awaits us and is so needed. Why am I here? Well, I had a lot of resistance to that too. This isn't really my kind of setting. It's usually a bit more intimate. So let's get intimate. I am here for our children. As a mother, it is my deepest wish to leave our kids a planet that is as healthy, as beautiful, and as evolved as I possibly can. And I'm here to ask you to do the same. Who am I? Well, on one level, I'm Kyra. I'm a naturopathic doctor, a yogi, wife, mother of 5. I love life. I love plants. I love this country. And I wake up every morning with a deep sense of gratitude that I am able to walk my walk and live my dream as it unfolds within me and around me. But that's just a story. My story, a unique story. And we all have unique stories. That's why we're so interesting and different. But where I want to connect with you today is the story that we all share. The human story, where I am you and you are me. And we are one, with the same biology, the same consciousness. This is the story that we share, and it's reaching a crunch moment. I mean, here we are, possibly one of the toughest times humanity has ever had to face, our own extinction. And what are we doing about it? Distracting ourselves, turning away. But actually, the outside is only a reflection of the inside. As above, so below. 25 years ago, at the Rio Earth Summit, a 12-year-old child stood up and pleaded with the politicians and policymakers to stop destroying the Earth. In a speech that was so heartfelt, it silenced everyone there. She spoke on behalf of the children who would inherit the planet. Well, I am one of those children. And what's changed? We continue to destroy our planet and those we share it with. So when are we going to wake up? When are we going to wake up and realize that nobody out there is going to make the changes for us? We are responsible. We are responsible for our own lives, our health, our happiness, our relationships, our planet. We are responsible for our own revolution. And this revolution, my friends, is not out there. It's not violent. It's not aggressive. It's not a fight. In fact, it's more of a surrender, a true surrender to ourselves and to what is. This is the revolution where we humans get to engage in ourselves and to really ask ourselves the deeper questions of what's important to me, really, and then go and live that. It is the evolution of our consciousness. Marianne Williamson said, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. But this fear is holding us in resistance and distraction. We don't want the responsibility. But now is our moment to face our deepest fears and dive right in with a smile." It's an internal revolution. Many people call it awakening. But we keep ourselves from revolution. We nourish ourselves with chemicals and sugars and additives in the processed food that we eat. And we take in hormones through pollution, plastics, and pharmaceuticals, which play havoc with our endocrine systems and play with our emotional stability. Or we take in copious amounts of painkillers, pharmaceuticals, which numb us into becoming dependent on the drugs and the system that provides them. Or perhaps we watch TV drama or fill our heads with gory images that just make us immune to the reality of this life that we are sharing. And if we haven't been distracted by any of the above, well, we're probably reaching for a glass of wine or a cigarette or a magazine, anything, just to distract ourselves and relax for a bit, right? So we are kept in a state that we believe is reality. And we are swept up in mass criticism and mass belief and mass drama. And more importantly, we disempower ourselves into believing that someone out there, be it education, government, parents, partner, will solve our problems for us. It's time for us to take responsibility. And it's not an easy process, like seeds growing through the earth. I doubt that's easy, but it happens all the time. So last year, at the end of the season, I was feeling tired, overworked, guilty at not spending time with my children. And after an argument with my beloved husband, where I wanted him to change, because of course that was going to solve all my issues, he said in his usual pragmatic way, "Why don't you just go on pilgrimage?" It was his way of telling me to shut up, but it worked. And the next day, I was already planning my walk across the Himalaya on a spiritual pilgrimage that I have dreamed of since I was 18. Now, I'm a bit of an extremist, and Mount Kailash is the toughest amateur trek in the world, with an altitude of 6,000 meters. It's also a very sacred site for Hindus, Buddhists, Bons, and Jains. But what was I thinking? Climbing the highest mountain just to find out the answers to my suffering? Well, when I was 22, just before I got married, I marched 800 miles across northern Spain on the Camino de Santiago on a mission to find enlightenment. And although the trip was incredible, I was somewhat disappointed when enlightenment, whatever that meant, was not immediate. So this time I tried to go with little expectation and let the universe guide me. My plan? To disconnect with the world that I know in order to fully connect with myself and live in the moment. No distractions. It was the most amazing experience of my life. I arrived in India, drove a 14-hour crazy drive up into the Himalaya. The drive in itself was a test of trust. And then, for days, I wandered in silence across rivers, under waterfalls, through valleys filled with flowers, and into the snowy mountains around them. And on to the most challenging part of my journey, where I lugged a backpack up through the clouds and around the holy Mount Kailash. Now, oxygen is very scarce up there, and after about 22 kilometers, I was completely ready to surrender. So I found a small stream, lay down, and everything went white. It was amazing. Just being sucked out, like I was ready to go. Right there, would have just popped off. And then a Tibetan was tapping me on the shoulder hard and urging me to move on. So I pulled my backpack back on and began to walk, and all I could hear was my mind screaming at me that I could not take one more step. but somewhere inside a deeper, subtler energy, just guiding me to keep walking. Now, all change occurs in the now. And somehow, in that moment, I was able to just release the mental distraction and the mental resistance and keep going. So when I finally dragged myself into the monastery, the most revolting yak butter tea given as a blessing from the Lama was like an elixir of life and rejuvenated me immediately. And I was very lucky. Many people don't make it up there, but I did. And the next morning, I practically bounced out of my sleeping bag, put on my backpack, and trekked higher up into the clouds through a blizzard and reached the summit as the sun was rising. Magic. Real magic. So I did have a direct experience of complete surrender and the equally exhilarating experience of reaching a difficult goal or summit, both of which are extreme moments where it's very easy to be in the now, present. But the deeper understanding was that it's all the steps in between, where when we allow ourselves to be fully present, we can begin to discover awakening. And a few days later, this time halfway up Mount Everest, on hands and knees, I prayed with all of my heart for the awakening of myself and of all of humanity. I had no idea what I was praying for, and it wasn't until I came home that the unraveling process of this revolution began to occur. Questions like, who am I, and what's this all about, and what am I really here for, might be questions that we just chuck out there sometimes. But when we really stop and listen to and feel the answers, well, then the revolution begins. And currently, I feel often that my whole innards are just disintegrating around me. My heart breaks open daily as I find myself in floods of tears, feeling unloyal, unkind, harsh, cruel, with all the suffering around us. And yet, within all of that drama, I still feel a deep sense of connectedness, a genuine sense of self. So I know that this is just part of the process that one must go through for awakening, and I'm okay with it. When I heal, you heal. And that is powerful. Through awakening ourselves, we heal each other. As Gandhi said, we must be the change we want to see in the world. Well, my sisters and brothers, nothing's going to change if we keep distracting ourselves. So how do we change? Well, it starts with a wholehearted decision to change. And then we just need to see what comes next. For me, what makes my heart sing? Well, let me get up and do that every day. That's how I begin to change. For me, to begin to live your dream is to start the revolution. It's when we begin to grow, because we have to trust in ourselves and allow ourselves to fail and then pick ourselves up and keep going despite the temptation to quit or to be lured back into comfort. My family are British, but I grew up in the Dominican and spent my life jumping off coconut trees, picking up little pink shells from white beaches, gallivanting through the tropical jungle. My heart is here. So naturally, my dream is unfolding here also. 9 years ago, we moved back to the DR, opened a small holistic clinic in La Romana, while we became guardians of a piece of land that we call Kyra, which means place of the earth spirit in Taino. I have a vision of abundant plant life enveloping a utopia where people come to experience the deep connection between all things and their own conscious evolution. Kyra is growing, and I'm still dreaming. And it's not always easy. I think we've been living at Kyra for 2 years with no electricity, pumping water out of a well, kids everywhere, mud, rustic, People came and left quickly with a, "You guys are crazy" kind of look. I was pregnant with my fourth, and I was sick of smelling melted butter in our little icebox that kept things cold, and on the phone complaining to my mum. So she suggested that we move to England, where life would be easier and more normal. Well, it was a tempting proposition, and I do miss my family. But when I really sat and allowed that to sink in, it would mean quitting the dream. Why be normal when we can be ourselves? Sweet, soft, open, ourselves. So, at Kyra, we choose to live in a place where we can be safe and open and ourselves. And it's grown a lot since then. Now people come on retreat and space is held for them to let go of their stuff. It's a beautiful experience. Laughter, tears, mud, body paint, silence. Very healing, high vibrational. And people fall in love and think that life at Kyra is like this in every moment, that retreat is our normal. Which to some extent it is, but, we all have to get on with the daily tasks of life and our own personal development. And add to that we are nurturing 5 beautiful young beings who are the perfect representation of humanness in its most raw, naked, truthful form. Sweet, creative, kind, nurturing, and confused, angry, frustrated, conflictive at each other, at life, at the state of the world, who knows? But it's there for all to see. And it brings up all manner of judgment, conflict, sadness. The mirror of life is showing us what we need to see. And people begin to wobble and leave. And often, loco is used in the goodbye speech. Well, yeah, we're nuts. But then, we're okay with that. There's nothing normal at Kyra. We're all pushing boundaries and taking life to its extremes. But then, isn't that what it's all about? How will we reach our true potential if we don't expand it as far as we can? How will we grow to be what we believe in if we sit back in the normal of society? Adyashanti taught me to choose to love each moment, even if it's pushing me to my absolute depths. So I choose to love each moment. And in this moment, I want to connect with you. I care about us. I care about our planet. I care enough to sit here in front of you and ask you to choose. I believe that the more people ask to awaken, becoming more free, so the energy force grows and the global prayer is granted, just like that. Isn't that what we all dream of somewhere deep inside? So together, let's disconnect from distraction and reconnect to ourselves and to each other so that we can inhabit an earth of unity, truth, love. If not now, when?